sit there and wait for a minute.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, people? I know it's been a minute. It's been a while. Been a few months. We just wanted to make sure that we were right. You know, before we come and drop some knowledge on y'all, we wanted to make sure we have the knowledge ourselves. You know, in our cannoli.
But we missed you guys. I did. I missed you guys. I missed coming on here.
Yeah, I miss you too. I had Call of Duty though, so I was good. So, today's topic.
Hey, Deacon.
What up, Mr. Assistant Preacher, Reverend Deacon James Coleman, JC? You're newlywed too, Mr. Coleman. Yeah, actually, how's it been going? You know, we need to talk. We should bring you on this as a guest next time. Today's topic came about because of something that my wife had read from a pastor, a head figure in a church. And I'm saying the pastor. I don't know who the pastor was. I don't remember the name. I can't remember. But he was saying something to the effect that, you know, if you're having issues in your marriage and you're going through something with somebody in your marriage and it seems like you're just fighting in your marriage all the time, it's because you did not marry your rib. Hence the name of this topic today, ribs. Because everybody loves ribs. Just give me one. I mean, two, and just put it in my hand, you know.
And it's not just about ribs. It's also kind of dispelling some of the myths about marriage that really aren't biblical in nature. Some of the things that we believe to be biblical truths about marriage, which really aren't.
They're really not. Due to TV because it's funny how, you know, we always saw about how our grandparents had that love that lasted for like 50, 60, 70 years until they died. But you got to remember something. They didn't have TV. They had radio programs, but a lot of them did not grow up in a TV era. TV has romanticized love so much with soulmates and finding that perfect one that God is going to drop somebody right on your door. You know, you're going to walk out and they're going to just practically fall on top of you, and it's going to be the angel's going to sing and the harp's going to play. TV, it's nice to be romantic, of course, but TV has romanticized love and marriage and relationships so much where if anything goes wrong, that's it. This is the wrong one. It's the wrong one. They can be the wrong one when you're single. You know, you can be wrong all you want once you're single. You know, you can cut it loose when you're single. But marriage is completely different. Marriage is stepping into a covenant with God. And we know God honors marriage. He honors all marriage. So we want to just kind of touch on that notion of, you know, marrying the wrong one because it's not your rib, marrying the wrong one because it's not your soulmate, because a lot of that is not biblical. It's just not. It's just not. The only person that I can really recall that was someone's rib was Eve, because he had to make it that way. He chose to make Eve from Adam to be a physical part of Adam, to be his other I won't say other half, because, you know, they're both whole people, but that one flesh, because he did not make her from the dust of the earth, because in essence he kind of did, because he made her from Adam. But he didn't pull her up from the dust of the earth. You know, he saw Adam did not have a helper that was suitable, because if you actually read that, you know, he kind of presented a lot of things to Adam, probably a lot of animals. And if you read that thing carefully, it was a lot of things that came up to Adam. It just probably lion came up, nah, this ain't no good. You know, a little sheep came up, nah, they ain't gonna do what they got to do. They ain't even got thumbs. You know, a little monkey came up. He probably got hands, but, you know, he's probably throwing doo at him. So he's probably like, nah, this monkey ain't no good. And God said, hey, he couldn't find a helper suitable. So what did he do? Put Adam to sleep and took out his rib. And I read something very interesting about the word that stands for rib in the Bible. I think it's Selah, T-S-E-L-A. And depending on how it's used, they say it's only used one time in that reference in Genesis, and then it's used another time in Daniel, the Hebrew word for rib. And when it's used in Daniel, it actually means like side. So it's like describing the ark. So if you actually use that word and translate it to how it might have been used with Adam and Eve, what it's saying is that God might have actually took Adam's whole side, not just the rib. He might have actually took his whole side, because, he does say bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And when you just pull out a rib, there might be a little bit of meat on it, but just bone. But he said bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. But regardless of that fact, that's the only time that rib is actually ever mentioned in the Bible, that God made woman from Adam's rib. That's it.
So ain't your rib?
You're my rib in spirit. But you are my rib for the simple fact you're bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. We become one. Man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, blah, 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 and they shall become one. So we are one flesh.
I don't even eat ribs anyway.
I like ribs. We haven't had ribs. They don't have like chicken ribs, because they probably do, but it's probably like this big. Do chickens got ribs?
They got chicken everything. They got chicken ribs, I'm quite sure. They got chicken everything.
But it's got to be like this big, though. It's a chicken rib. You be like this. They probably cost more than wings, because my Lord. But that's the only time when the rib reference is used. But other than that, we just were discussing and how a lot of people in church are of this notion of, you're going through issues in your marriage because you married the wrong one. And we always say that if there are warning signs in the beginning, you still have a choice. You have a choice. Man, you have a choice to ask that woman that got like 4 baby mamas, that was partying, drinking when you met her. If you smell, woo, oh boy. I don't speak on that, but if they were wild before you got married, okay, and you still decide to ask that woman for her hand, you still made that choice to ask that woman to be your wife. And don't think because all of a sudden now that they're your wife, that all those issues are just going to magically disappear once that ring goes on the finger. No, it doesn't. Now you can work at it, and those things can get better, but it's something that you have to work at. Ladies, if you know that man was a cheating dog, and he got like 4 baby mamas and has been sleeping with your cousin, your sister, your best friend, and he asks you to marry, and you say yes, and you go down the aisle together and get married, you have made the conscious choice to get married. We need to stop with this, like you got trapped.
I married the wrong
I married the wrong person. You knew that was messed up. But that does not mean that you can start down that path. It doesn't mean it has to go down that path. I always love to use Bible references because a lot of people are like, oh, it's not in the Bible, da. My most favorite example to use of a modern day situation when it comes to something like that is, you know who? King David and Bathsheba. Well, everybody know King David and Bathsheba. What happened? He saw her bathing. That'd be like Facebook these days. You see some woman, dropping half naked pictures on Facebook. You decide that you be like, hey, how you doing? Hit her on the DM and stuff. She got a man. You know her man. But you like, she been throwing it at me. So I'm gonna see what's up. So he called Bathsheba over, to his place. Got her knocked up, got her pregnant. He knew who the husband was. The husband was in the army. That's like your homeboy. You knew who he was. You got his girl pregnant now. And he just happened to have an accident and fall down the stairs and die because you got to get rid of him now. Kind of like what David did with Bathsheba's husband. He knew he was trying to get Bathsheba's husband to sleep with his wife, so they can pass off the baby as their own. But this is how good God is. Just tell you what God will be like, yeah, okay, you ain't gonna get away with that mess, and you ain't gonna get away with that mess, and that's what happened. The husband was like, no, I am not sleeping with my wife. I'm abstaining because all my men in my company are abstaining, and it would be wrong for me to partake in those pleasures, and my men are not. David was like, oh snap. So what did David do? He told his generals, I want you to send them to the front line, and then the rest of all y'all just run back to the building. And Bathsheba's husband got killed. So what did David do? He ended up marrying a woman. He ended up marrying Bathsheba. Unfortunately, like I said, sometimes you got to pay for them. You got to pay. And see, that's a lot of times we get to these marriages that quote unquote wasn't the one. And you're gonna go through some stuff first. But the beautiful thing about God is that if you truly want your marriage to survive, it will work out. It'll work out. But you got to work at it. You know, David and Bathsheba, the first baby they had died. You know, the first baby died. But in all accounts, if you look at David and Bathsheba, because we know David was a man after God's own heart. He was a repentant man. He was a man that loved God. He knew he did wrong. So I'm sure David probably fell on his knees, rolled around in the dirt, danced. Because, you know, he already danced naked one time. So he probably danced a few times, you know, to God's glory until he was butt naked again. And all accounts, David and Bathsheba lived a beautiful, wonderful, blessed life. Now, how did they start off? They probably started off as wrong as you could possibly start off in a marriage. But because they believed in God, understood God, David was a repentant man. You know, he understood he did wrong, asked God to forgive him, and their marriage turned around. And that's what we got to understand. But we got to allow God into our marriages. Too often we are so quick to people are so quick to be like, I married the wrong one. God honors marriage. God honors marriage. There's a lot of people that have been married once or twice that when they married the first person they married, been married 15, 20 years, they probably thought that was the one. But things happen. Things happen. Like Tory Roberts, you know, he's married. Tory Roberts is the preacher guy. Sarah Jake Roberts' husband. Sarah Jakes is T.D. Jake's daughter. Get ready.
That's play sister. That's my play sister.
So, you know, I'm sure who he married for, he was married for a while. That he probably thought that was the one. But we have a choice. God is not a matchmaker. God puts people in our path every day. And it's up to us to choose whether or not this is the person we want to get to. But what happens with a lot of times is that we confuse one 4-letter word for another 4-letter word. L-U-S-T. That's the word that we confuse.
And with the soulmate thing, the Bible never says to find the one that God has chosen for you. The Bible says he who finds a wife. It didn't say he who finds the wife that I have chosen for you. It just said he who finds a wife. The Bible doesn't tell you to find who God has chosen for you, but what the Bible does tell you is how to live with the person that you choose. That's it. It tells you how to be married to the person that you ultimately choose. It doesn't tell you who to choose. It just tells you how to live with who you have chosen.
Mm-hmm. They may not be, quote unquote, the right one, but you can live the right way, and they become the right one. Okay, and that's what's going on in this microwave society, though. That as soon as the sugar honey iced tea hits the fan, that you knew was there anyway. And that's what's so bad is that so often people are going into these relationships knowing exactly what these people are. If you've got red flags, like we were watching something on TV the other day. We watched something on the ID channel. They were dating in high school. This dude was flat crazy. Boy, he didn't want her talking to nobody. I mean, he had people looking to see if she was talking to somebody. She get home, didn't tell him she was talking to Michael. He jump up, I heard you was talking to Michael. And she's like, how you know that? But he had people looking. He said then she had some dude talking to her about music. So the boyfriend came with a gun to school talking about, I'm going to take care of this. We won't be talking to him no more. And he was crazy. He been crazy. They dated for about 5 years. They got married. So you think his craziness went away once they got married? No. It intensified. It escalated to the point where he was caught killing somebody. But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when you get into something like that you know you should not have gotten into, you're going to do a little reaping. And a lot of times we think that we get married and then like whoop-de-doo-die, it's gonna get perfect. It's like life though. And in essence, it still doesn't mean she married the wrong person, because they both could have done the right thing. Mm-hmm. They could have both done, or he could have done the right thing. Mm-hmm. He could have been the right person. He could have chose not to grab her around the neck. He could have chose not to walk around with a gun. He could have chose not to be really was demon possessed.
Because God doesn't have a special person just for you. Because he teaches us, his love, his principles of love, patience, forgiveness. those things work all the time with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's no special person just for you, because those things that God has instilled in us and is teaching us through his word, those work for everybody, regardless of who you marry. Mm-hmm. Those things work with everybody, but it's up to you to put in the work.
Because who did God make man out of? He created man in his own image. What was today's verse of the day in the Bible at? The fruit of the Spirit. God is the fruit of the Spirit personified. Love, kindness, long-suffering. The other ones that I can never remember. I just can't remember them all. But the fruit of the Spirit. We all have that in us. We all have that in us. Because we were made in his image. It's just, we also have that sinful nature. We have that flesh side. We have the spirit side. We have the flesh side. We can choose what side we want to embrace more. Even in marriage, you can choose to love. You can choose to be kind. You can choose long-suffering. You can choose to treat your spouse right. But it's all a choice. We make it so hard with this soulmate thing and it's wrong one and all that stuff. When all we have to do, instead of saying, well, I'm going to cuss this person out because da-da-da-da-da because they the wrong one. Or we can choose to love and be like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. But you know how you do that? You have to allow Christ into your heart. You've got to allow him into your heart. You've got to. You've got to start cultivating that fruit. Because it's right now, it's just, it might be a little seed in a lot of us. Just a little seed. But you got to start nurturing it. It has to start growing. It has to start producing. If you don't water it, if you don't work on it, it's not going to grow. And marriages take work. But just like life takes work. You don't quit on life when life punches you in the face. Now, if your spouse punches you in your face, I'd say get out. That was just really metaphorically. Yeah. It wasn't literal.
And also, another one of those things that people like to say about marriage that isn't necessarily biblical is the proverbial, I love you, but I'm not in love with you.
Man, if Jesus said that to us, I love y'all, but I'm not in love with you guys. Jesus talk about love. There ain't no in love. There's nothing in the Bible mentioned about being in love. And if you pull up the doggone NIV version about what David, when he was and Saul's daughter, when they rewrote it to be like, and what's the name? What was it, Malia? What's that woman's name? Mahalia Jackson? I can't remember the name. It starts with M. I remember the stuff. I just don't remember precisely. The NIV was saying she was in love with David. But if you go back to the King James Version and all the other versions, New King James, it'll say, and she loved David. There is nothing in the Bible about being in love. When people say, well, I love you, I'm just not in love with you no more. We're looking for an out. And that's what happens. That's what's happened with marriages when people start saying stuff like that. They're looking for an out.
Because love is intentional. Love is something you choose to do over and over again. It's not something you fall into or fall out of. It's something you choose to do on a daily basis.
And you kind of contradict yourself because what does the word tell us to do? Love thy neighbor. Whoever your closest person is in your house, that's your neighbor. If it's your spouse, that's your neighbor. So when you say, well, I love you, that's it right there. You might as well just not say no more. But when you throw in there, I'm just not in love with you, you made yourself just look stupid. I'm sorry. Because the Bible, you're going to sit there and tell somebody you love them. And then you're like, well, I'm not in love with you.
Because God said loving was enough.
That's it.
To love. He didn't say fall in love with anybody. God never said to fall in love with anybody.
Because you're supposed to love.
He said to love.
Mm-hmm. That's the first. That's the greatest. That's the second great commandment. That's the second commandment. Love thy neighbor as you will love thyself. Not be in love with your neighbor. It don't say the greatest of these three is faith, hope, and being in love. It says it's faith, hope, and love. Ain't no in love. Because that's just an excuse that once again that romanticism and TV and all that stuff has pushed on people about
like
this unlove.
Butterflies and this fuzzy feeling.
That's just
oxytocin.
Yeah, that's just the chemical. Yeah, that's endorphins. That's just the chemical process in your brain, of something new. Because you do that when you get chocolate. I feel that way when I get a video game. I be like, oh my God, did you see this game? It's just beautiful. Then after you pay it for a while, you be like, this is the stupidest game I ever had. And then you want the next game. All it is, that's just all it is. It's just like a drug. That's all it is. And then some people actually live off that feeling. That's why they go from relationship to relationship because they want to get those.
They're not in love and they're in love and I'm not in love anymore. Let me move on. They always chasing that feeling.
That feeling. Them endorphins. That butterfly drug feeling. I was watching the movie, the sci-fi movie back in the days where they would actually extract it. It's crazy. I think they was actually scaring me to death, and then they would suck out the endorphins, and it's I forgot what that movie was called.
We don't want to know.
But we got to stay biblical, more and more, especially in this day and age. We've got this because there is so much stuff going on these days. It's so much that you really have got to know your word, even
in season
and out. Be ready to teach, rebuke, and correct, and be ready. Because there's going to be people that's going to claim they know God, they claim they know the scriptures, and they are going to just twist it to suit their message. They're going to twist the word.
And especially a lot with marriage, because marriage is so, I don't know, these days people are so against marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always looking for a way to twist the scripture relating to marriage.
Mm-hmm. But they're against marriage because really they're against God. It's just they do not. We're so this society is so much in this. Don't believe in God. There is no God. Or I believe in God, but I don't believe in Jesus. So I believe in God, but those teachings were old. It doesn't apply to today. When we already know God's the same then, now, and forevermore. So
times have changed.
Yeah, the times have changed.
But the word of God stays the same.
Word of God stays the same. We change. The people change. But that's why you've got to be so much on your P's and Q's on the word. Because it's coming. It's coming. Where you could possibly be swept away. You could be swept away. Because it's just gonna be like that line, and the devil roams like a hungry lion, seeking whom he can devour. And today, that is more prevalent than ever with everything that's going on. People, like I said, don't want to get married. They can live together for years and years, don't want to get married. We touched on all that stuff before. Like I say, we just wanted to hit on that thing about the rib. I mean, if you really want a rib, go to the supermarket and buy you some ribs. They're tasty, delicious. You barbecue them real good. You can call them your own. She is my rib. In spirit. I mean, she didn't fall out, out. I do call her my rib because we are one flesh, but there's only one true rib. What up, Dre? I need to talk to you too, Andre Elder. I wanted to ask you something about another elder. But but it's your rib, it's okay. Like I had a post that said, this is my wife. She's not my wifey. She's not my boo. She's not my thing. She's all of that. But the greatest thing that she is my wife. That's the greatest compliment as a man you can give a woman, and is to marry her. But we also have to get into. We got to do right. We got to do right, just like life. You can't live life and do ungodly things. It's just the same thing. It's the same principles. You can't get in marriage and be ungodly in your marriage and do everything wrong. You have to choose to be right. You got to choose. You got to choose to live life right. Because chances are the way you live your life and you go into your marriage, that's how you're going to go into your marriage. Marriage not going to transform you.
Because people break all the laws in the marriage and then wonder why the marriage is bad.
Because they probably break the laws before they get to marriage. They've been breaking them. And then bam, they go into the marriage with the same mindset. So that's why... But you have to want that change. You can't say that it won't happen because it does happen. It has happened, but you've got to want it to happen. You've got to want it to happen. And we say it takes two. Ultimately, it does take two. But we know it takes one to believe in God. It takes one to believe that he can do it. Because God can work on that person's heart and change the heart. God can change your heart. But there's some people that are just doggone spirit resistant. Well, God be stabbing them all up in the heart trying to chip it away. And they just like... just blocking it.
And that's kind of another thing that people also will think that if my spouse, is not participating in, like if they're having problems and my spouse is not acting as if they want to work on it, then there's nothing else to do. The only option is divorce because I can't do it by myself. And that may be, eventually the spouse is going to have to put in work. But you can go to God on behalf of your spouse. Mm-hmm. You can petition God on behalf of your spouse.
Because ultimately, once again, it's a choice. Because God can be work. Because we fight the spirit all the time. We fight the spirit. You can override the spirit. We do it all the time. That's the whole thing with sin. We're disobedient to God's word. We can override the spirit, but you just got to believe that God can do it. But ultimately, it's still a choice that person has to make. It's still a choice that you have to make. It's a choice that you have to make to go on God, to go to God on your spouse's behalf and trust and believe God. But it's also a choice that spouse has to make to allow God to move. Because some won't do it. They just won't do it. Some be so hard that you trying to chisel away, and it's just like I forget it. That's a wrap. And some just are just stubborn. They will just choose not to do it. When people know a lot of times we know the right thing to do, but sometimes we just choose not to do it. That's just who we are. We just some wicked people at heart. Who knows the heart? It's wicked and deceitful, and unfortunately with some, not all marriages will be saved. That's just how it is. Just like a lot of people won't come to Christ. As much as you preach the good news and tell them how good God is and, and having that relationship, some people just won't do it. They just won't do it. And unfortunately, that happens in marriage too. Some people just won't do it. But in the event that happens, that's next week. I was going to get into that, but we're going to keep it short and sweet. Like I said, you haven't been back for a while. We're going to be back more often next week. And then after that, we take another hiatus. I'm just playing, y'all. I'm just playing. But we wanted to just get on here and just talk about ribs and stuff like that. And what type of, potato salad you're going to have with it and what you're going to drink and all that stuff. And what you're going to bring to the picnic and the biscuits and all that stuff. Because you want the rib. Rib is good, but you want the whole meal too. Treat your rib good. Don't throw it in the garbage. Savor it. Slobber over it.
Fill it with sauce. I don't even eat ribs.
She Southern. And she bougie Southern. It ain't like Alabama Southern. Because them people ate ribs. Dre, you know.
I don't even eat ribs.
Them people used to cook a whole hog in the ground.
I haven't had a rib. Like, we live in a city that's known for barbecue, and I think I've had barbecue once, and not even a rib, but I had like barbecue chicken, maybe some brisket. That's it.
I will have barbecue every year, at least once a year, because my job does like a Jack Stack barbecue Christmas thing. So, and that stuff be good too. Oh my God, it is so good. It's so good. And they got ribs.
But do you eat ribs from there? Did you eat the ribs?
Yes, I did. That's all they got is ribs. They had like 4 pans of ribs. I
had brisket.
I was trying not to eat because that's the thing. Once you start, man.
What did I have? Did I have pulled pork? I don't know, but it wasn't ribs. I haven't had a actual rib in Kansas City, right?
Ribs are expensive.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. Ribs are expensive.
Kansas City, and I haven't had a rib.
I've had a rib.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I'm gonna probably shop them.
Yeah, you did.
That's like maybe twice I've had a rib.
But once again, just wanted to hit y'all with some talk.
That was just so totally random.
It was talking about ribs, so it ain't no way black people gonna talk ribs and not talk about food ribs. I'm sorry. Yeah, we are. But we just want to say we love y'all. If you're married watching this, don't think you married the wrong one if you're going through some issues.
That is not.
That is not the wrong one.
That is not the way to go.
That's not the way to go. We're all going to go through issues in marriage, just like the same way we go through issues in life. We go through the same thing. Concentrate. Go to God on your spouse's behalf. Go to God on your behalf. Go to God. First and foremost, you can put God in your marriage. Put him in your marriage. If your spouse is fighting it, you keep God. You keep God in your marriage. Keep him. Keep him. Keep him. And with that, we say good night.
This is what I deal with on a daily basis.
Wait till we get a big camera. You should see the computer we getting. Oh, baby Jesus. We'll do an unboxing on that. Love y'all. Bye.